Hi there guys, part 2 on making a moderator, and in this part we're going to be covering putting the little features on the end and lightening the moderator down. Now I've had a good think of what I want to do with it, and I think I'm going to leave it pretty plain. I want a mod that I can swap onto pretty much any gun and it not look out of place. So what I've decided is to put some notches around the outside of the end cap and also do a deep dish front. I don't want the moderator to look too different from the factory original. This is an FX moderator. As you can see there, R1 is quite a bit longer and a bit thicker in diameter. In case you're wondering, our moderator is 160mm long and the standard FX one is 12.5. The standard FX moderator is 35mm in diameter and R1 is 40. This is an older one I made. This has got the cast lotions on the outside and the deep dish front. However, it's also got slots in the side, slots in the back, and round the back cap there, it's got holes round it. This one's also recessed. It's bored in the back here so it slides over the shroud slightly. So, since the last time you saw it, all I've done is put some 45s on all the joining corners. We've still got to lighten it obviously. This one at the moment weighs 250 grams. The standard FX mod weighs about 85. We'll try and get this one as close to that as possible. I will be making internals for this mod, so it's always going to be a little heavier, but we always try and get them as light as possible. Right, let's get started. Right, so here we are back at the lathe, putting in the bore at the front. There's nothing precision about this, it's just aesthetic. What we're going to do is just use a boring bar, go in and just make sort of like a pie dish shape in the front. It'll make more sense when I've done it. Right, and there we go. Just a decorative bore on the inside of the front cap there, and we just chamfered both ends. The pellet hole's got a nice chamfer and this outer racer's got a nice chamfer. Nothing critical, but just adds to the appearance. Right, so I'll get the moderator all built back up again and I'll show you how we're going to do the little features around the front. Right, so here we are back over at the mill. We got the moderator back on the mandrel and in a 6-sided collet block. This will just help us do our indentations and make sure we get them nice and evenly spaced. I've got that set up in the mill, just on some 1, 2, 3 blocks with an overhead clamp. On this end we've got our stops set up, so we're always going to be in the same position. And in the mill we've got a 2-flute ball-ended end mill. That just means the bottom of the end mill's round, so we get a nicer finish on the bottom of the hole. Right, so we're going to put 6 cast lotions in there, so I'll set the camera up and we'll get started. So that's all the slots in the front. I'll get you a good look at that in a minute. To get the 6 indentations in the front there, we used a 6-sided indexing block, or grinding block I think they're called. What we did is we clamped it in using the top bar like this, and then when we finished milling one slot, just rotated it round and milled the next. Gripping the moderator in the vise like this, just make sure that there's going to be no chatter. You obviously have to be quite careful, as a vise this size will easily crush tube with no problem at all. But since this is quite thick wall and has solid ends, we're not too worried. A nice light clamp holds it in place nicely. So on this moderator we only did the 6 indentations on the front. However, this method is used if we want to put the slots in, or there's little slots in the back or the nut in or anything like that. We clamp it in here, find the centre and mill the slots. On this mod I'm just keeping it as the front cap. but for my other mods this is the setup I used. Then just went through with an appropriate sized end mill on the top here to create the slots in the middle, or for the nut on the back you could wind the table in and out. That's how I do them. I suppose the proper way to do it is using a dividing head. I do have one, but it's an awful pain to set up every time you want to do a couple little features like this. So this method works fine. So I'll get this taken out the mill, then we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Okay, so there's the end there. As you can see, just that little bit of detail breaks the moderator up quite nicely. The bolt end mill just gives a nice round hole in the bottom there. I did used to do it with a square bottomed end mill, but I prefer the ball ended one. Right, so the final machining stage before anodizing is lightening the moderator. What I mean by this is we've still got quite a lot of material in the inside. The walls are still awful thick. As I said before, this weighs about 250 grams, and we ideally want to get it below 100. A light moderator just minimises the amount of point of impact shift you get when you change between moderators. So the lightening process really isn't that interesting, so what I'll do is I'll do it off camera and I'll bring you back when we're finished. Right, so that's all the lightening done. What I've done is I've bored out the tube part here. That's a 37mm internal bore, and at this end where the step is, obviously I couldn't bore it out 37 this end, otherwise we'd lose the threads, so that's just 35. So we've got about a 1.5mm thick wall. Now I normally leave it about 1.5mm in case I want to do the slots in it. If you want to do decorative slots, I normally go about 0.75mm deep with them. So you want a bit of thickness to the wall if you're going to do the decorative slots. The front cap we didn't really touch as it's already pretty much as light as it can be. I probably could have taken 1 or 2 grams out the middle there by boring the face back a little, but I don't think it's necessary. And then the back cap, as you can see there, I bored it all the way out, so there's a 10mm thick step in the back here. Then what I've done was with an end mill I pecked around the 1/2" UNF so that we end up with a 10mm thick spacer of 1/2" UNF in the bottom effectively, and a ring round the outside, so nice and light. We've got a step up here, and that's where our first baffle is going to press into. Then the other baffles will be connected to that. As it sits now, the moderator weighs 105 grams. I'm happy with that. It would have been nice to get it a little lighter, but I don't really want to compromise the integrity of the moderator, so I'm going to leave it as is. A standard FX moderator weighs 83 grams, but since we're going to be 5mm bigger in the diameter and 35mm longer, I don't think it will be an issue. So there's just a couple more steps before the moderator's finished. Obviously we've got to anodize it. It's silver at the moment and we're going to anodize it black, and we have to make the internals. Now it's a bit late now, so I won't anodize it, but I will start making the internals. Now the way I make my baffles is I make them like this. This is one from a 2.5 moderator. What I use is baffles and hair curlers. The hair curlers press over the baffles so the pellet goes through the middle, then we wrap the hair curler in felt. This just helps absorb the sound wave, makes the moderator quieter. If you don't put anything in these long ones, they tend to echo. So I fill all my moderators with baffles and felt. I'll get started making them and I'll bring you back when we're at the lathe. Okay, so here we are over at the lathe. We're going to be making baffles. Now I've already made most of them off camera, and we're just going to be making the front one together. They're really not that interesting, but I thought I'd show you how I do them. So we've got our piece of dowel in here, and we've turned the OD to a close fit in the end of the moderator. So we've just got to turn the little boss on it to accept the end of the hair curler now. Let's get started. Right, that's done it. So we've got a good close fit on the hair curler now. So I'll drill a hole and relieve some material, then we can part it off. Right, and there we have it, the front boss for the moderator. Got to turn this side yet, and I've left it a bit thick so we can adjust the thickness when we fit the baffles. Normally we have to cut the baffles down. It's just nice to be able to take 1 or 2 mil off the baffles to get the moderator to screw up nicely. So I'll turn this face and I'll bring you back when it's all done. So here we are with the baffles complete. We have a front cap, 2 middle caps which will go in the tube section here, and a back piece. The back piece is a very nice fit in the back of the moderator. That gives us our standoff for the first hair colour to push on. Similarly, the front one just pushes in the front like so. It's a nice good fit and restricts the hole down in the end. Since this is going to be for a 177, I've made the hole 6mm, which should give us a nice amount of silencing. You can go smaller, but I've found 6 to be sort of the cut-off point. Any larger than 6mm and the moderator starts getting more noisy, and any smaller than 6mm you can run into clipping issues. I'll explain a little bit about clipping issues in the final video. But that's about it for this video. The hair curlers fit on the baffles quite nicely, and when it's finished it should be a nice quiet little mod. So that's going to be it for this one. I'll see you in the next one.